Okay, so let's get started. Thank you so much, everyone. For those who have tuned in to the LinkedIn Live, welcome to the session. For those of you who are going to be watching this session on demand, thanks for taking time and watching this another lunch and learn session with SAP partners. Uh, this has been this is something that we've been doing for the last 3 months or so, where I'm trying to answer the one question, which is the kind of innovation that is happening in and around the SAP ecosystem. We try to bring in thought leaders and experts and practitioners from various fields. On some days, we bring in customers who have actually done significant amount of digital transformation within their organization to talk about their perspectives and learnings. Some days we bring in SAP experts who talk about not so commonly known SAP innovations. And on certain occasions, we bring in startups and SAP partners who have built an application that solves a very specific problem that typically customers face in order to drive significant efficiency gains. Today is one such day. We have the team from Icertis. They'll be talking about how they can actually help when it comes to contract intelligence. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Prashant for you to quickly introduce yourself and take it away, please.
Thanks, Mukesh, and hello everyone. This is Prashant Chaube. I lead the pre-sales for Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa for Icertis. And I am joined here today by Vinesh Peparwala, who is the VP of Sales for the region. And together we'll be taking you through today's session. So what is it that we are going to cover? Today's agenda, we wanted to just have a quick look at the current state of the contract management landscape in businesses. We'll also look at how Icertis is trying to shape the future of CLM, what kind of capabilities that we are bringing in to make sure that businesses are able to run their contract management function very efficiently. We'll also look at how do we work with SAP and strive towards providing greater value to the customers. And we'll close it off with a little bit about Icertis, get you familiar with what is it that we do, what is it that we are, and our credentials. And we'll end with some Q&As. Any questions that you have, we'll be happy to take that up. So with that, I think let's get started. Now, we talk to a lot of organizations who are looking to modernize their contract management function. And some of them are leaders in their respective industries. Some of them are aspiring to be there. But then there are some common themes that come out when we talk to them. First and foremost is that the whole process is very manual and labor intensive, right? There's a lot of manpower being spent on mundane activities like doing follow-ups, keeping track of contract expiries, renewals, maintaining documents in a repository, and so on, right? This takes away the business's focus on the actual contract management priorities, which is around reduction of risk, which is around improving efficiency, securing better terms from your vendors, and so on. So when we look at contract management, right, it's a function that is going to work along with a lot of other folks in the organization, right? You need to talk to your legal team, finance team, you need to talk to IT, you need to talk to your procurement, your sell side, and so on. But then all of this collaboration normally happens in a very ad hoc fashion. It happens via emails, it happens on phone calls, and probably 6 months from now, there is no audit trail of what exactly happened, because of which a certain structure was put in place or a certain contract clause was agreed upon. Right. And this whole contract management function is kind of siloed. It is disconnected from your rest of the enterprise applications, whether it is ERP, whether it is your procure to pay, or your CRM solutions. Most of these organizations are focused upon on keeping a repository of contract. Right? Their focus is on creating these folders and keeping these documents safe. Right. And in pursuit of that, they are not able to actually realize the core intent of the contract and benefit from whatever you have agreed upon. It becomes very difficult to reconcile because these are existing in separate files. A lot of times for the same supplier, when you have multiple contracts running in parallel, there's a possibility of there being conflicting terms and conditions, because it's manually very difficult to keep track of what was agreed upon in one contract and make sure that the same thing gets applied in the subsequent contracts as well. People struggle with the search. So it becomes very difficult for them to go and trawl through those 20 different PDFs to search for which are those contracts which have got a particular clause around indemnification or a liability clause and so on. And lastly, I think contract data is one of the most precious data of an organization. But then it is lying in people's desktops, laptops, it is lying in some shared directories. So there is a challenge around unsecured, unauthorized access of that data, as well as in case of a natural disaster or a technological disaster, somebody's laptop crashing and so on, right? Your data is prone to these kind of risks. Now, because of these challenges, there are also certain business implications which come in, right? Simplest one being the kind of turnaround times that we see on the contracting life cycle. It takes a lot of time for people to churn a contract, and that has an impact on your procurement activities. That has an impact on how soon can you start getting revenue into your organization, right? There's also a loss of business controls. It exposes you to certain risks when you're dealing with your third-party service providers. There's possibility of contract leakage. It becomes a challenge for you to make sure that whatever you agreed upon in the contract is actually what is getting executed and paid for on the ground, right? And of course, there is a risk of regulatory non-compliances as well. Now, a lot of organizations are focusing on ESG, for example. So whether the suppliers are also in line with those practices that the organization aspires to. So there are a lot of business challenges that organizations face because of the outdated contract management processes that are there in the organizations. When we talk about the IT organization, they again have a host of challenges. So first and foremost, people are very comfortable working on MS Office, Microsoft Word. That is the platform of choice for any contract management professional, right? Because there is unlimited flexibility. You can do whatever you want, right? But from a systems perspective, it comes with its own challenges, right? These disconnected files are error prone. They are, as we talked about, data security and so on. Then whenever there is a demand for a contract management tool, IT organizations are faced with a choice of whether they build something in-house. A lot of organizations go for some custom development being done to just temporarily plug the gaps, or they buy something from the market. And again, when they go out to buy something from the market, they are faced with the challenge of whether they buy something which is available as a part of a bigger suite of ERP or CRM products, or they go for a best of breed tool which has got the best of functionalities and there is no compromise, right? How much of it can be customized, right? Whether you're buying a suite or a best of breed solution, right? Every organization's contract management processes are going to be very different. So what is the flexibility that is available in the tool, right? And how do you manage and maintain those customizations over the life of the tool? Another challenge that we see is how will this contract management piece fit into your existing ERP landscape? There'll be organizations using SAP, there'll be organizations using some other products for ERP, some other products for CRM. So how do you make sure that your business process doesn't get broken while data moves from one system to another, right? You also have to keep in mind the kind of deployment landscape. So if your solution is running on a particular cloud, whether the same tool can also be hosted in the cloud or it is going to be on-premise and so on, right? Who's going to operate the software? Who's going to maintain? Who's responsible for all the patching, upgrades, security, and so on, right? We talked about contract management being a multi-party activity, right? So a lot of times you'll have to provide access to your suppliers or your customers to the contract data, right? When you're running into these contract negotiations. So how do you ensure that that access is secured, controlled, and done in a manner that your organization approves of? And lastly, in order to bring in efficiencies in the whole process, people will like to adopt modern technologies around AI, ML, and so on, right? Now, fitting that into the existing contract management paradigm again becomes a challenge for the IT organizations. So in light of these business challenges and IT challenges, where is it that we see this whole field going? Right? So we talked about certain challenges. Now, the world is moving from a manual and labor-intensive contract management process to standardized and a workflow-driven process, right? Where you're having a kind of a library of clauses, terms, conditions, etc., which keep getting reused based on the business case or based on the business application. Right? Instead of ad hoc collaboration, you have an online collaboration that should be provided by the system with a complete audit trail, so that at any point of time you can refer back to the contract and what happened at that point of time. It should be integrated with your ERP, CRM, and any other IT application that you're running in the organization. Instead of being a repository focused activity, it should be execution focused, right? What are my contract milestones? What are my contractually agreed upon rates? Whether the supplier or the customer is getting what we agreed upon, right? How does the execution can be made smoother? Right? And then automated enforcement of these terms and conditions, which should be there. A forward-looking tool should also have capabilities around deviation tracking, so that you don't have any kind of conflicts in the terms and conditions, right? Users cannot just go on the fly, change some language without any repercussions, right? There should be a second set of eyes looking into these kind of deviations, so that you know that your organization is not being exposed to certain risks, right? In terms of reporting, there should be interactive dashboards for analysis, because, I mean, this is a time when you have to realize the value of the contracts, right? It's not just a dumb file that you are keeping somewhere, right? You should be able to derive some intelligence out of these contracts. Which are the suppliers with whom I'm doing a lot of business? Which are the suppliers which can expose me to potential risks, and so on, right? Finally, the data and access both should be secured, right? So this is what we look at as the bare minimum qualities of a futuristic contract management solution. Now, in light of this, what is Icertis doing? Right? So this is a broad landscape of what is it that we deliver as a platform to support these requirements or these aspirations our customers have. Now, I'll start from the bottom of it. Let me just see if I can put the pointer. So this bottom darkest block that you see is our base platform, right? This establishes the foundation of the entire contract management activities. This is where you do your setups around your master data, around your processes, around your workflows, and so on, right? How will the contract flow in the system, right? As well as the basic reports and dashboards which are available, what's going to be your risk management framework, and so on, right? So this typically becomes a starting point for most organizations when it comes to contract lifecycle management. Now, what we have done is we have gone one step further, and we have created certain business specific applications. So customer who's operating in a retail industry, who's very worried about the promotions and rebates that are being offered. People on the procurement side are worried about sourcing activities, supplier onboarding and compliances. Some specific industries which look at, say, clinical trials or GDPR compliance for organizations who are doing business in Europe. So there are some purpose-built business applications which we offer so that your deployment time is crushed, right? There's an out-of-the-box ready application available for supporting these kind of business requirements, which are very unique to contract management in particular industries, right? Then there is an AI element which is there. So we are investing a lot on the AI capabilities to enrich the capabilities of the solution. And I'll talk about these in detail in subsequent slides. And what you see on the right-hand side are the different integration adapters, right? So normally a contract management solution has to integrate with third-party systems for different activities. Things like Whatfix, which can help you with user adoption, things like DocuSign or Adobe Sign for digital signatures, and so on, right? And the most interesting part of it is the topmost layer. So normally, contract management tools are required to integrate with other applications, but we have gone one step further and we are trying to provide an experience to the user. What it means is that the user is working in a familiar UI of SAP or Microsoft or any other application. And from that application itself, they're able to manage the contracting activities. So this is what we call as an Icertis experience for SAP. Right? All of this is deployed on Microsoft Azure Cloud, and we are able to offer these solutions in a software as a service kind of a model for our customers. And of course, we are bringing in some advanced capabilities like an AI studio for customers to run their own AI ML models. We have a blockchain framework to make sure that smart contracts can be managed in the system. So this is a broad outline of what is it that we deliver in order to meet the requirements of the industry. Now, if we drill down one step further, right, what is the core or what is the foundation of your contract management activity, right? Typically, you start off with your template authoring, right? You have this set of standardized templates which are created. Then you get into individual contract creation. When a contract is created, a contract body is populated. It goes in for multiple rounds of review and approval from legal, from finance, and any other stakeholders that are there. Then comes the contract execution part, right? This is where you're operationalizing the contract and then managing the life cycle of the contract, whether there are any amendments, there are any modifications that need to be done, so on and so forth, right? Towards the end of the contract life cycle, you have a contract which is expiring. So what actions that need to be taken, whether you want to go in for a renewal of the contract, whether you want to just let the contract expire and analyze whether the contract was performed to the way it was desired to be, right? And then what you see on top and bottom are some of the capabilities that we have to augment these functions, right? So for example, in the contract setup part, right, we have a configurable metadata creation capability, which is available. So we can import all the supplier data, we can have all the employee data, item data, and so on, right? Access controls are defined. You have a governance model on around clauses, around templates. You have a very robust workflow engine, which can help you with the approval rules, deviation rules, and so on, right? We are able to take in third-party paper also. It's not always that your paper is what is going to get accepted by organizations, right? So any third-party contract also can be ingested into the system, and you can manage the execution. Microsoft Word-based editing. So people are working in a familiar Microsoft Word UI, but then all the data that they're acting upon is coming from the system, right? So they're always working on the current data and making sure that nothing is getting dropped down the cracks, right? Of course, there are many other features, but then things like risk and compliance management. So how do you make sure a risk metrics and then rate each of the contracts on those risk parameters that you see and highlight which are the high risk contracts for you, right? How do you collaborate with third parties? How do you work on a mobile application to make sure that some of your day-to-day activities around contracting can happen on the go itself, right? And then a robust reporting framework, which can help you with not just alerts and notifications, but also formatted structured reports as well as interactive dashboards, which can give you insights into your contract data. And again, another important factor, keyword search and full text search, right? So anything, any language which is existing in the body of the contract, which is lying buried inside of a PDF, right? We are able to run a search on that particular string of text and tell you which are the contracts which have got a particular sentence or a particular clause which is embedded in them. Right? So this is a broad overview of what all things that we do. And if you have, I mean, we'll be happy to get deeper into this with any of you who are interested in getting to know these capabilities better. Just wanted to give you a look and feel of how the application looks like when I'm looking at a particular contract, right? So it's a very visual application, very intuitive and easy to understand, wherein you can see what is the stage of workflow of this particular contract, which stage my contract is in, right? It gives me a summary, some details, who's the requester, etc., etc. And then on the left side, you can see a breadth of capabilities, right? So you have summaries, details of that particular contract, what is the body, what is the language of the contract, and so on. What are the supporting documents, right? Whether it is a purchase order, whether it is an invoice, whether it is a design document, anything else, right? All the supporting documents which are related to a particular contract are shown to people, and you can add such more associated documents here itself, right? How are we performing on the fulfillment? What are the obligations related to this particular contract, the risks, the amendments, a complete history audit trail of this particular contract? What are the notes and observations that have been recorded on the contract? So everything is available to you in a very simple and easy to use user interface. This makes the adoption of the solution very easy for people. We talked about some insights which are coming out of the contract data. So this is an example of the risk management dashboard of the tool, wherein you can see what is the financial risk, what is the risk of performance on this particular contract, risk scores by different contract categories, contract types, etc. Right? If I want to look at my contracting function, right? Which are the supplier agreements by region, which is the region where I'm doing a lot of business, right? My not just on the sales side, but on the buy side, but also on the sales side, right? How many NDAs am I signing? Which are the contracts expiring in 30 days, 60 days, and so on. This gives me an idea of the workload also that is being expected by the contract management organization, right? Of course, it's a very rich and interactive dashboard, and you can create your own KPIs. You can bring in your own matrices into this whole reporting framework as well. Now coming to the topic of AI, right? This is again a very underutilized area, if I can call it that, when it comes to contract management. But then we are making great strides into the into the artificial intelligence space as well. Now, the basis of this, right, and the basis of any AI ML engine, right, is data. Data is the fuel for these capabilities, right? And because Icertis has been in the industry for 10 plus years, and we have been working with a lot of customers on their contract management data, we're able to train our natural language processing engine on a wide amount of data, which is helping it to become more and more accurate and deliver more and more capabilities to our customers. Now, some specific use cases around this particular capability, right? The first one is what we call as a Discover AI. Now, this particular capability helps you ingest the contract into the system, right? Do an OCR of the contract, understand the English that is written, and then extract the data of interest for me, right? It could be a rate table which is hidden inside a contract document. It could be some key attributes or metadata like supplier names, expiry dates, obligations, and so on and so forth, which can be brought out. And it can also help me compare this with my standard library clauses and templates which are there. The second capability is around negotiations. So what are the kind of terms and conditions that have been used in past? Can the system suggest me what is it that I should use to negotiate with my supplier or customer when I'm getting into a new contract with them? The third capability of Visualize AI helps me look at all my contract relationships with different parties, right, which are spanning across multiple contracts, and help me visualize this. I mentioned AI Studio, wherein you can use your own algorithms for working on this contract data. And finally, we are also bringing this AI inside of the applications as well. We talked about some business applications. Now, all of these applications, whether it is obligation management or risk management, they also have an element of AI infused in them. This is just an example of how Discover AI works, right? So when I have ingested a contract, right, system looks at what is the actual contract text which has been uploaded, and it highlights certain keywords that it has identified, right? And basis that, it says that, okay, this language pertains to a clause around liability, or this language pertains to a clause around insurance, or this is a language which is related to an obligation that is there for me, right? So these are the kind of insights that can come out of the AI capabilities in the solution. Now, switching gears to how do we work together with SAP, right? So Icertis provides these contract management advanced capabilities, both on the buy side, where we work closely with Ariba, as well as on the sell side, where we can integrate with CX and CRM for supporting sales contracts as well, right? We have been working with SAP for a long time, and some of the credentials. So we have won 2021 SAP Pinnacle Award. We are a gold partner for SAP in the Partner Edge program, and so on. Right? But then how does this integration work? So just taking an example of the buy side integration, right? We have customers who are using Ariba, right? So they start off with creation of a sourcing request, they run their sourcing project with the suppliers, and finally, when they have come to an award decision, right? This is a point at which a contract is triggered into Icertis. And this is where you create a contract, you do your contract assembly, you have your clauses, templates, redlining, approvals, and so on. And final signed contract is something which is passed back into the SAP system for execution. So this is where your line items are there, your actual deliverables are there, and you operationalize this particular contract into your core Ariba or on your ERP side. Now, with this kind of an integration, we are able to have a two-way data flow between the two applications so that users get a seamless experience. And this particular integration is something which is a part of our endorsed status with SAP. And I would request Vinesh to just talk a little more about the partnership that we have with SAP, what is the nature of it, and how we are going ahead with that. So Vinesh, over to you.
Thank you, Prashant. And so just to set it in perspective, on the 25th of June, 2022, that's this year, SAP and Icertis made a very huge announcement about their partnership, and specifically in the space of enterprise contract intelligence. This partnership is going to be addressing all global SAP customers, and it is now, what SAP calls the SAP endorsed app. Premium certified. It will actually help all customers to benefit from not only SAP's expertise, which they've been doing all these years, but also now looking at the Icertis Contract Intelligence platform. Prashant, can we move to the next slide, please? And as you can see, this entire partnership is being driven at the leadership level. So here you have Christian Klein, Chief Executive Officer and the member of the Executive Board at SAP. And if you look at this, the expanded cooperation with Icertis will help our customers to take advantage of market-leading innovations for contract management from Icertis while managing their core business processes with SAP solutions, right? So It's a partnership that actually complements both portfolios and with multiple, touch points, as you can see, across ERP, supply chain, finance, procurement, sales, HR, CX, and what have you, right? Moving to the next slide. This slide will tell you about Icertis Leadership now. This is Samir Podas, who's our Chief Executive Officer. With this partnership, both SAP and Icertis customers will be able to drive end-to-end value across the enterprise. So the intent, the objective is that every contract is correctly, memorialized and fully realized, right? Like how Prashant mentioned, many a times contracts get, relegated, or they get stored on some desktop or laptop or some, cupboard here or there. But this is where, SAP, Icertis come together, bringing, an AI-powered best-of-breed contract intelligence to all customers. So, and it is great to also share with you that SAP also the leadership has made a decision to use Icertis internally for their own operations and for their own contract intelligence management systems. Right. Moving to the next slide. So just wanted to share with you, and this has been through the industry analyst, and we've just handpicked 3 of them here: Gartner, Forrester, and Spring. And it's this, that we've been in the leadership quadrant as a leader for the past 3 years consecutively. So 2019, 2020, 2021, and as we speak, obviously 2022 is like work in progress. So we are right up there, and we've been working with customers from 2009. So let's go to the next slide, Prashant. So we've been working with customers since 2009. Any contract, any industry, any vertical. Currently, from a value, or a volume standpoint, it is like 10 million plus contracts that are being served on the Icertis Contract Intelligence platform. In value terms, it is crossing the 1 trillion mark, 40 different languages globally, and more to come. When you look at our customers, across the sectors or verticals, automotive, transportation, Airbus, Daimler, Porsche, pharmaceutical, healthcare, Johnson & Johnson, one of our largest, then AbbVie, which is essentially Abbott Labs, Sanofi, technology, telecom, Airtel, Microsoft, ServiceNow, and more, consulting services, energy, engineering services, banking, finance, insurance, retail, CPG, or consumer products group, your manufacturing, distribution. You can see all the names here. Essentially, we cater to all the industries, segments, verticals, all lines of businesses. Next slide, please, Prashant. Committed to the industry, all our customers and partners. Our customers have been with us for literally, from inception. In fact, some of our, top customers, like for example, we started with Microsoft in 2009. Microsoft today, all their entire contract intelligence is run on the Icertis core platform. Then you have Daimler, then you have Johnson & Johnson, you have Best Buy. So totally committed to the industries, the customers, and our partners. To share with you on the partner front, we have made very, very significant, progress, and our engagements are with the who's who, including the Accenture, Deloitte, PwC, KPMG. And we also work with all, systems integrators like TCS, Wipro, Cognizant, and it's just growing. I mean, it's like super momentum. Since the time we started with the SAP partnership, which was in January 2022 this year, just to share with you, we worked from Jan to December. So in our first half of this financial year, we have secured 14 solid wins in Q2 alone, and we secured about 8 wins in Q1. Okay, so Jan, Feb, March, 8 wins, and in April, May, June, 14 wins. So you can just understand the momentum that is there out in the marketplace. And as we speak to you, in my geo or region, which is essentially Middle East, Africa, and India, between the SAP and Icertis teams, we have already identified 42 customers who are engaging with us in some manner or the other. Some we have very advanced level talks, and we've done deep dives, we have done workshops, we've done demonstrations. We are actually in a business value conversation. So, that just gives you a perspective of the momentum. I'm extremely nervous and paranoid because, all customers want to understand this solution now, so between both teams, we're trying to figure out, how to ensure, we keep up to the pace and momentum. Our next slide, please, Prashant. So Icertis at a glance, founded in 2009, our Chief Executive Officer, Samir Bodas, co-founder, and our Chief Technology Officer is Monish Darda, again, co-founder. We have 12 offices worldwide. We have 2 very large development centers, one in Seattle and one in Pune, so very close to all customers in India and Middle East and Africa. We have 3 support centers, and we are growing at a rapid pace. Okay, so this counts 1,800 plus employees. This is full-time employees, and we also have, let's say, the outsourced contractual resources, which is close to 800 people. 10 plus million contracts managed globally. We have been on the Forbes AI 50 list consecutively for the last 3 years, 21, 20, and 19. And of course, we are absolutely excited because of the kind of momentum we are seeing in the marketplace. Okay, so next slide, please, Prashant. So in summary, okay, given the SAP Icertis partnership announcements, January 2022, it is absolutely difficult to share the experience on the ground. It is absolutely an excitement. It's like a euphoria that has been, kind of set loose on the ground in the marketplace, where customers are absolutely wanting to understand, how does SAP and Icertis work together, right? How can we actually complement each other, and how can SAP Icertis help us to do our work better, help us to grow, and what's the business value? So these are the conversations happening, and me and the team here are super excited. In fact, as I keep saying it candidly, we keep, working with customers to ensure that we do not schedule something and then call it off because there's a conflict and so on. So SAP Icertis, absolutely. I mean, I would really, really encourage and, request each one of you to do a deep dive and understand how it works together and how it can actually bring real value, not only to you, but your teams, your organization, and your absolute business. Thank you.
Thanks, Vinesh, and thanks, Prashant, for taking us through the presentation. There are a couple of questions on the LinkedIn Live, which I'll just start with. So the first question was, Anindya asks, as a contracts manager, we need to evaluate a contract running into thousands of pages. So can we have a summary output which tells me which clauses are defunct or what is missing depending on the evolving statutory requirements with respect to my business, my industry, and the country that I operate from a standard library connected to a data feeder?
Sure. So I'll take that, Mukesh. I think it's a common ask in the industry because this is where it hurts the most to contract management professionals, right? You have to manually keep track of all of these changes which are happening all around you. And I think the process starts with when you're creating the contract itself, right? So at that point itself, we offer this capability to do a comparison of what is there in a contract with what your corporate standards say. right? So when you have established these standards around contracting, right, you have some set of clauses, you have some set of templates which are created, which are approved and vetted by the legal team to comply with the statutory requirements, right? So we are able to provide you with this comparison in terms of how is this particular contract deviating from the agreed upon standards in the organization, right? So that's the first step, right? It's manually very difficult for users to go through that entire contract, and specifically when he says it runs into thousands of pages, right? So for such cases, we have pre-built reports which are available for deviation tracking, for highlighting things which are non-standard or things which can expose you to risk. And users can just get that summary, look at it and see whether further action is required or not, and who are the people that you need to pull in order to maybe take care of those exceptions which are there. So in short, yes, this is very much possible, and we can do that.
A follow-up question to that from me is that, you can do this for contracts, new contracts that you are doing. What about contracts that are already existing, which people are carrying over for a period of time before they start implementing Icertis? So how do you do the same thing for those contracts which come in from their past before implementing Icertis?
Okay, so see, if you look at it from a technology perspective, right, it's the same technology that we are using for ingesting a new contract versus ingesting your legacy contract, right? So as part of normal implementations, we get this ask from a lot of customers that what happens to all my historical contracts, right? So we provide a service for ingesting those contracts as well. And in the process of ingesting, I was talking about the Discover AI capability, right? So we use that AI capability to actually look at that particular contract which we have imported from your legacy data, and then run it across the standards that are there and also highlight the deviations which are there. So whether it is a historical contract or whether it is a new contract, right, we can do the same thing for both contracts.
But if I understood you correctly, you're saying that the historical contract is a separate service, which means that there will be a separate fee for that as well.
Yes, because it does require some bit of a manpower effort on our side to tune that engine for the historical data upload, but it's minimal, I think, negligible
Okay.
cost. Yeah.
Okay, so the second question that was asked on LinkedIn was, do you also create a risk profile for contracts based on learned data? I think you did mention about a risk profile summary page as well, right? If you can just go back to that slide and show that, that'll be great.
Yeah, I think it was in one of the dashboards that I was showing you. So see, at a contract level itself, or let me just go back one step further from this, right? You can see that here on the left-hand side, right, we have a provision for capturing the risks associated with a particular contract, right? And what are those attributes or what are those variables on which you want to evaluate these risks? So that's step number one. Right now, when I'm looking at my aggregate of contract data, right, let me just go back. Yeah, this one, right? So now when I look at the aggregate of all the contract data that I have, I can have my reporting also run on top of this. So this is a specifically created risk dashboard which shows you different risk metrics. You can filter that by type of risk, by region, by suppliers, and so on. Right. So those capabilities are very much there, and you can manage your risks inside of the contracts as well. The system can flag, right, that these are the high risk contracts and these are the high risk clauses which are there inside of a contract.
Okay. And a follow-up question is, you also shared about the integration that you have already pre-built and certified by SAP with Ariba, right? So what happens to those customers who do not have Ariba and only use S4? So how does the process flow look like for those customers?
So that was one example that I had used when it came to the integration. We have adapters for the core SAP ERP also as for HANA as well. So we have customers who are not using Ariba but using Icertis for contract management, and we are able to connect with the core SAP product as well and have a two-way integration. Yeah.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. Similar capabilities exist within SAP's DMS, or for that matter, OpenText as well. So how is your product different from those solutions?
Vinesh, you want to take that?
Okay, let me give it a shot. So, when you look at it from an Icertis Contract Intelligence platform, we have focused on contract management systems end to end, right? So it's like absolute laser focus on anything and everything to do with contract management systems. So, as Prashant's slide talks about, from authoring all the way down to execution, and then post-execution, it is about, obligation management and, risk management and, a host of other, functionality that gets built in, wherein your contracts stay alive, right? Because, one of the customers was talking to me and, their immediate reaction was, Vinesh, can your contract intelligence platform give me actionable insights, right? So effectively speaking, the contract has to stay alive from the date it is signed to the time it actually expires or gets renewed, and then there is another cycle that begins, right? Whereas when you look at it from a DMS, and I'm not an expert on the SAP DMS front, but I've seen DMSs, okay? And in this case, I'm just trying to confirm, Mukesh, you are referring to document management systems, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So because DMS also is used as a dealer management system, so I just want to make sure that we are on the right page. So when I look at a DMS is typically a process flow or a workflow that gets fitted into an organization so that there is an end-to-end execution, without any obstacle or without any challenge of confusion or complexity, right? So it's a simple document management system which helps companies to ensure there's the right kind of process flow, workflow, so that the work gets done in a timely and in an efficient manner. Whereas in contract management, it is pretty much, obviously it's an end-to-end flow, right? Having said that, it basically focuses on things like, as we mentioned, right, there are too many, there are many multiple business parameters that get taken into consideration. Like, what are my commitments? What are my obligations? What is my risk, exposure? What's my liability? A lot of things there, right? So contract management system is kind of a system that actually caters to everybody, right? Business, which could be your sales, marketing, then procurement, commercials, then your finance, your legal, and including leadership, right? They want to know there's a contract value of, let's say, X millions of dollars, and there is a liability also associated with Y millions of dollars and things like that. So to the best of my ability, when I speak to customers, they basically, when they look at contract management or contract intelligence, they are number one, one of the use cases I must share here is a CFO asking us that, during the pandemic, we've actually just gone up and down, right? And today, my margins are eroding slowly and steadily. Okay. And I can't figure out, what's happening. So can you people help me understand which all contracts I'm actually facing a severe margin erosion? And how can you help me, get the right kind of data? So which means that I may have to go back and renegotiate those contracts or look at a possibility of maybe, closing those contracts and doing something new so that I don't continuously, kind of lose out on my margins. So these are the kind of conversations we have. These are not document management system conversations, right?
Got it. So another question from the LinkedIn chat is, what are the language support for this solution? Do you also support Indian languages?
So we have, I think, 20 plus languages globally that we are supporting. And in India, we are operating only in English as of now. We have it on the roadmap to have further support for other languages. But as of today, most of the Indian customers, their legal operations are happening in English, and we are supporting that.
And globally, you said 20 languages, right? So is there a place where someone can find out what these 20 languages are?
Sure, I think it's there on the Icertis website, as well as if they're interested, they can ask a question and we'll be happy to point the link.
Sure, super. So a few questions which typically we ask all the partners. First one, I'm assuming that this is a cloud solution. Is my assumption right?
Yes, that's correct.
And how do you license the solution?
So it is again based on the number of users primarily. So when we talk about the core contract management, we typically license it based on the number of users that are there in the organization. And again, there are different degrees of users. So there are core or professional users as well as light users, which we offer, because there are some people in a larger set of audience inside the organization who will be doing very minimal set of activities like a contract request and so on, right? So we have those tiered licenses which are available. Plus, there are some technical components like your additional environment or some integration adapters, which have got a flat fee per instance.
Okay, so the integration with the SAP solution in terms of either Ariba or the core ERP, is that included in your user license, or is that's on top of the user license?
It is included in the SKU that we have. So we have some SKUs which are defined specifically for SAP customers. We call it ICI for SAP. So with those SKUs, the integrations are included in the price. Yeah.
And you also showed some AI deployment within your application as well. So is that bundled along with the licenses, or those are on top of whatever you shared as well?
So AI capabilities are normally the three modules that I talked about: discover AI, negotiate AI, and visualize. Right? Those are separate line items which a customer has to procure in order to adopt these. Because I mean, not everyone is in a state of maturity to adopt these capabilities from day one. Right? So it depends on the customer's appetite, and we don't want to burden the customers with additional financial load. So we have given them this flexibility to pick and choose what is it that they want to deploy.
Cool. And in terms of the time it takes to deploy, so from the time, let's say, someone signs a contract with you to the time that they go live, how long in your experience is that typically?
So it depends on the complexity that you are wanting to uptake. So there are organizations which have decided that they want to put in place a basic standardized workflow of contract management in place first, right? Those are things which can be done in as short as probably 2 months' time. Right, there are organizations which are looking at more comprehensive deployments, which can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So again, it depends on the scope of the contract, how many different contract types are there, how many clauses, how many templates that have to be created. So it's a linear model, right? The more contract types which are there, the more effort and more time it is going to take.
Okay, and in your experience, what's the typical ROI like for an organization based on whatever implementations you have done in the past?
So, see, there are few parameters on which people look at contract management and ROI for it, right? One is in terms of increase in productivity, right? But that's the simplest one, right? How much time does it take for you to draft a contract today versus how much time will it take once you have adopted a system, right? Those are things which are fairly easy to measure and easy to monitor, right? Similarly, there are metrics around contract leakage. So we have a use case of a customer who had a terrible lack of compliance with contracted rates, right? People are going and buying anything and everything that they want and not the things which are contracted for, right? Or the approved contracted items. So there again, the ROI is fairly straightforward to measure. But then more importantly, right, there is an element of risk, right? So how do you measure the cost of insurance, right? Or how do you measure the cost of risk, right? That's where the organizations have to take a call and see whether they are ready to go and invest in a solution which can help them protect from a risk which is unknown to them for as of now. So the answer is yes and no. There are specific customer KPIs which are available, and those, I mean, we have a lot of case studies which are published on the Icertis website, where we talk about the specific KPI improvements that the customers have been able to achieve using our tool, whether it is, say, thousands of suppliers onboarded on a given time frame, or cutting down the cycle time, or reduction in the day sales outstanding for some CPG customers. So those KPIs and metrics are published on the Icertis website, and people can go and have a look at it there.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, sorry, Mukesh, I just wanted to add something here, right? Because I think it's time for, our customers and our potential customers as well to understand ROI is a function of, a customer explaining and sharing on what they are going through today, right? Because, most customers, and, I'm just being candid here because, I love customers, right? And I do appreciate, where they come from, but most customers are very apprehensive of the fact of sharing leading indicators, which can help you actually build a proper ROI. And so what happens is that, everything gets done. And then when we go to the chief financial officer or, the chief procurement officer, we are in a tangle because obviously the CFO and the CPO are going to say, tell me what's the exact ROI. I'm going to give you X dollars, but now tell me what am I going to get, Vinesh? And if we don't play on the right leading indicators, the ROI calculation or the ROI conversation just kind of fizzles out, right? Because, and the reason I'm kind of bringing this up is because on one hand, I'm seeing customers who are still apprehensive of sharing, their absolute data or challenge points. On the other hand, I'm seeing customers who are actually very clear. I'm taking, like literally 3 months to sign a contract, Vinesh. Okay. And that's like 90 days. Okay. And then after that, I'll take another 45 days to kind of, get it activated. So I've already lost, like literally 120 plus days. So, but there are customers who are apprehensive. There are customers who are bold because they really want to put things in place because they know they're losing revenue. It's loss of, money, right? So just to bring that up.
Yeah, I know. The best answer that I've got to this question of ROI was that it depends. It depends on what you think is important. And you tell us what do you think is important, and we can then calculate ROI. Until that is done, can't calculate ROI. So there's another question on the chat which has come up, which is around the interoperability with standard Office tools, like for example, Microsoft or other tools, as well as the allowance for using OpenAI libraries or apply RPA solutions on your product.
Yeah, sorry, I was speaking on mute. As far as interoperability with Office tools are concerned, I was talking about the experience that we're able to provide to the customers around these tools. Let me just go a step back. I'm not sure if you're able to see the slide that I'm projecting. Let me just go back to one of the slides that I wanted to talk about. I hope it is visible.
Yeah.
Right. So we have very strong collaboration happening with Microsoft. In fact, Microsoft was one of our very first customers for this particular tool. And since then, the relationship has gone from strength to strength, right? Now, when it comes to the Office tools, right, or productivity tools that are being deployed, right, whether it is Microsoft Word, whether it is Microsoft Outlook, 365, and so on, right, we have very tight integration with these. So what you see on the screen is an example, right? So the user is working in a Microsoft Word UI. They are looking at a contract, and there's there is an Icertis add-in which is available right inside Word, from where you can view the attributes, you can view the clauses, you can edit the agreement, and so on and so forth, right? Or you can, from here itself, you can see at the bottom, you can upload this Word document back into the system. You can send it from approval right from here itself, and so on, right? Same way, when it comes to Outlook, right? A lot of communication that is happening with third parties on these contracts, right? There's an add-in available for Outlook as well, wherein you can just drag and drop the emails onto the contract add-in, and the system will keep a track of those emails as attachments inside of your contract. So next time when you log into the Icertis system and you're looking at the contract, you're also able to see those email communications that have come in, right? So it becomes very easy for the users to actually tag those email communications also with the contract.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that. And probably one last question, which typically is about what kind of customers find your solutions the most valuable. If I have to rephrase this, what would an ideal customer for Icertis look like, who can derive the maximum benefit out of implementing your solution?
Vinesh, you want to take that?
Everyone, and I'm saying this because, every business has to get into a contract, okay? And contracts are multiple, types, right? The question, I guess, what you're trying to ask, Mukesh, is, it's like this, right? If you're doing 2 or 3 contracts a month, or maybe 2 months or 3 months, right? You still have the luxury to do a lot of things in a semi-automated or a hybrid kind of a module, right? Because today most of the work is anyway like automated or computerized. But having said that, the volume, right? It's the volume. One, it's the volume, and two, it's the value, and three, it's just dependent on organization to organization. Okay, like for example, we cut across all verticals. Okay, we have organizations that are like also let's say 500 crores all the way to 5,000 crores and 50,000 crores and what have you, right? So just to give you a perspective of the size of the organization. But having said that, even a 500 crore organization could be doing, literally, 80, 90 contracts a month, or, 200 contracts in a quarter. So again, how do you handle that load? So that's the load, right? So it really depends organization to organization. We cater to, every vertical, every organization. Okay. I have yet to come across, and garner strength and courage to go and kind of decline a customer request. Okay. Only thing is, we got to look at these parameters because it has to make business sense as well, right? Because there is an investment involved. It's not just, like an off-the-shelf kind of a product, right? So we have to take into consideration, does it make the right business sense? Because this is a journey. Customers can start small and grow big. Having said that, one must remember it involves investment, it involves commitment, and it involves discipline, because it's more like change management everywhere, right? So that's the way I would look at it. I know there's no straight answer here, but I'm not going to say no to anybody, right? But I'm going to help them understand what it is.
Yeah. So anyone who's got high volume of contracts, high value contracts with risks embedded, probably are the right.
They should be looking at it.
They should definitely. Yeah. Cool. So maybe one last question before we kind of end, because we are almost to the time that we had for the day. I think I missed this on the chat. The question was, when someone is actually creating a new contract from the system, fresh, once you have implemented, are there guardrails in place to ensure that there are no, or rather there are minimum customization that are done in the contracts as part of the contract creation process itself? And what kind of guardrails do you have?
Yeah. So I think we take this standard compliance very seriously, and the whole product design actually embodies that spirit. So right from the time somebody is making a request for a contract to the legal team starting to prepare a contract, right? We have these cues coming in for them that, okay, if this is the customer, this is the type of industry, this is the nature of services or products that are involved, right? Hey, Mr. User, this is the template that you should be using, right? So right at the first step itself, the system is telling you that, okay, you should be using this particular template, which has got, let's say, these many clauses, which are already vetted and approved, so that you are able to comply with the standards. And every time you are having a contract of that, starts from the starting point. They are making very easy for the users to actually still and changes, right? We are able to have those deviations captured and routed for an approval workflow, right? Where the users have to provide justifications on why this particular deviation is there. Why do they need to move away from a standard approved language to something else that the customer asking for that? After careful scrutiny, only this becomes a contract, right? So there are ways and means to kind of make it a little more difficult, or scrutinize it a little bit, from straying too far from what has been originally thought.
Cool. Thank you so much. Where can people go to find more information and get in touch with you? Of course, if you are watching this on LinkedIn, Prashant is already tagged in the event, so you can actually directly, and both Prashant and Vinesh are tagged in the post. You can reach out to them directly. Otherwise, for someone who's watching this on demand, where should they go and how should they connect with you?
So you rightly said, be connected on LinkedIn, as well as there is a host of resources which are available on the Icertis website. URL is very simple, icertis.com, and you can go and browse around and look at all the content that is there, which we keep publishing. And in addition to that, Vinesh, you want to add?
Yeah, so just let me summarize it in one line. All customers can speak to Icertis, can speak to your respective SAP relationship manager as well, okay? Because you'll get a lot of help. You can reach out to me, reach out to Prashant. Prashant is situated in Gurgaon. I'm in Mumbai. Okay, that doesn't matter. You can just drop us a one line. You can just reach out to us, whatever works. You can always go to the website. You'll get a lot of content, that we can assure you. But if there's anything specific that you would like to know, and specifically for you, your team, your business, your organization, just reach out to us and we will be there.
Cool. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time and sharing your insights. I think it was pretty interesting and useful. And I'll talk to you guys sometime soon. For everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in on LinkedIn Live. Thank you, Anindya, for your questions. I think that made the conversation that much more interesting and brought it down to practical levels. And so for all of you who are going to watch this on demand, please do let me know if you want to reach out to the Icertis team, and I can connect you with them as well. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Mukesh.